So we get to continue with a conversation. So maybe at a different table than the one that you were at before, we have another opportunity for one of those inspiring, taking hold of inspired ideas. And so we have a couple of questions for you. And please don't forget to put whatever you think some of the results are from your conversation over on the brown paper to my right. But the two questions that would be great if you could consider are, what is the ecological model that we heard about just before the intersectionality panel? What does the ecological model add to your understanding of abuse and neglect of older men and older women and men? So that's the first question. And two, how does this change what we can do about it? So we have like about 8 to 10 minutes. Go. Okay, everyone. So there's no shortage of anything to talk about in this room. So just remember, we're not going to have time to have people go to the mic this time, and this little discussion session was a bit shorter, so if I could just encourage you to make a note of your key points on the Post-it notes and go over to the brown paper. Okay, so between now and the end of the day. So what we're going to do now is shift gears a little bit, and Margaret and I are going to be sharing this next section, which is really about talking about support. And I'm hoping what's coming clearer to you, especially for people who haven't been able to be as involved in this as some of the rest of us, is that what we're really doing is showcasing a lot of the products from the project over the last 3 years. So you've had a chance to see a number of the video clips. So the last scenario with the mother-son in the Muslim community, that is part of the It's Not Right repertoire, as was the moving in that you saw earlier and the animation. And we're also working collaboratively with Lillian and Debbie to see how we can make use of, with their support, My Friend Anne and John's Windfall. So these are some of the tangible products. And so when we do the training sessions to train presenters, what we're actually doing is covering a lot of the same content that you're seeing today. But you'll also notice, for some of you that have been around and involved in this for a while, that we're also continually, Margaret is also continually adding new pieces to help unpack our understanding of what we're trying to do. So that we use the scenarios to unpack, is it abuse, what kind? What are the warning signs and risk factors? How is ageism driving the situation? And what tips the balance? How is the power and control in the situation functioning? So what we'd like to do now, and then we also talk about intersectionality, and we are going to be continuing to unpack that more tomorrow, about how all these things can come together, all these forces can come together to affect not only the person experiencing the harm, but the person also causing the harm. So we will be continuing to unpack that and understand what's happening also for the person who's causing the harm, because mostly the situations that we're seeing, right, are older people who want to maintain these relationships, but they want the abusive behavior to stop. So the more that we can help understand what's happening from everyone's point of view, which is, I think, what we're trying to do, and to continue to get away from the black and white, good person, bad person concept. So then what we do in the training workshops is we actually talk about support and what that would look like. And so that's what Margaret and I are going to share this afternoon. And in the presentations that we're training people to give, we also talk about what does that support look like. So we are going to be moving into that, and you're going to have an opportunity to interact. So even though the table talk was a little shorter this time, you still will get to talk to each other. But before I move further into the talking about support, one of the things that we wanted to make sure we do is actually talk about social isolation. And I wanted to again acknowledge our colleague Charmaine Spencer, who actually couldn't be with us, but she's for this event, but she's certainly here in spirit, and she really was happy that we were looking to include some of her work on social isolation in this conference, because we know that social isolation is a very important risk factor, actually, that is very well supported in the academic literature. So I will not do this the way that Charmaine would do this. I need to kind of say that right up front, so when you feel a little disappointed if you do, she could have handled it much better than I, but I'll do my best. So she talks about defining social isolation, that it is used in a very general way in the abuse and neglect of older adults field, and it has a number of different meanings. So she talks about it in terms of it being, social isolation being an absence of trusted others in our lives, or a lack or inadequacy of social supports, or the absence of having a social network, or the degree to which we are embedded, connected into our communities. And she also talked about it being, because I did actually go have a visit with her before I came, she talks about social isolation being used as a way of describing or expressing social inclusion. So you can start to see some of the same themes from the ecological model of the individual, relationship, community, societal pieces in here. She also has talked about a number of other sort of related concepts that are related, but they're not exactly the same thing. And I think if people haven't had a chance to also take a look at the new National Seniors Council's report on social isolation, there's a lot of this content is in there. But some of the other related concepts are things like loneliness, social support, whether people have that or not, ethnic attachment, so the things that happen in our communities, in our society, that actually isolate people into staying in their own communities. She also talks about, another related concept being about the absence of accessible social networks. And it can also sometimes be a perception that a person doesn't appear to be connected, but we might not actually know that for sure, because maybe we're thinking that if they are not connected to an agency, then they're socially isolated, but they maybe have lots of other connections that we just don't know about. So Charmaine talks about social isolation being part of how we define abuse. So quite often when we talk about emotional abuse, we say that a form of it is to actually isolate the older person from people around them that could give them other information about options that would be available to them. We also talk about social isolation in terms of it being an indicator of abuse. That if someone seems particularly isolated, that is a warning sign, as I mentioned, that we see well documented in the literature that does actually make us look more closely to see if there's more going on there that we may not know about. She also has talked about sort of pathways of abuse and how social isolation ends up being manifested in a situation. So she talks about it being social. There are people who have spent a large part of their lives being socially isolated. So that would be the pre-existing situation that she's talking about. She's also talked about how social isolation can be caused by the way that the person who's causing the harm is functioning. She's also talked about that it may be that a person ends up more socially isolated because of things that are happening to them, like if, for example, they have health issues or maybe they have a dementia that is starting to make it harder for them to interact with others. She also talks about sort of the protective and emergent beginnings of social isolation, where as a person ends up experiencing more abuse, they tend to isolate themselves because they are feeling ashamed or scared and worried about what will happen if someone finds out what the detail of what is actually happening to them. And then she also talks about the socially created forms of social isolation, those things that we have talked about that happen at the community and at the societal level. So I wanted to just say a little bit more about some of these things. And what occurred to me is, when we've been doing the workshops, we've focused a lot on what's the harm, what's the impact on the person experiencing abuse, what's the impact on them, and we've also been trying to unpack what is happening beyond the behavior that we see for the person causing the harm. But increasingly what I see in her work is looking at those two people in the situation, but also looking at the role of the bystander, the neighbor, friend, and family member, and also then putting that in a broader context. And it also occurred to me that, and maybe you all already knew this, and I was the only one who didn't know, but I think the more that we work towards understanding beyond the behavior of the person that's causing the harm, the more we delve into that, the more it's helped me see that people who are causing harm are often isolated as well. And I'm not sure that we think about that much. I think we focus on the person that's experiencing abuse being isolated. In our workshop presentations, we talk about, neighbors, friends, and family members feeling isolated until they've perhaps figured out how they might proceed. It's can be a hard time when we don't know exactly how we're going to proceed to offer support. So I just think that's the idea of the person who's causing the harm being socially isolated is an important piece as well. So the person who is functioning abusively, they often do, it is part of the power and control process to actually keep the person away from their social ties as a way of controlling the situation and ensuring that no one else finds out what's happening. It can, in terms of the person causing the harm, be a function of things that are happening with them. So I think we've touched on that this afternoon in the intersectionality piece, that they may have some of their own depression or mental health issues that are causing them to function in an abusive manner, and also because in combination with social isolation. There is also the issue of depriving the person of, which I think I touched on, the access to the outside world to get information about their alternatives. I think we also can see in some of the situations that the person causing the harm has a lot of self-focus, and certainly we saw the progression of that in the moving in scenario. And the result of, or one of the results of people who are causing the harm, isolating the person, is that it also ends up that the person that's experiencing the harm actually becomes quite dependent on that person. I mean, the person causing the harm is also often dependent on the older adult. But I think that, if they end up being the only person left in the person's life, then it may actually get harder and harder for them to get help, see anyone that might be able to offer assistance. So this is sort of from the perspective of the person causing the harm. And what happens for the person who is experiencing the harm, often, people feel stigmatized, and so they do withdraw from social interaction out of these things, fear, feeling like they're going to be abandoned. They withdraw from their peer or their family contacts, possibly because they have experienced being judged. Like, why do you let this happen to you? And it's been going on for a long time. And then there are also things, as I mentioned, happening with the older adult that could be personality issues or dementia, underlying depression, or other pre-existing conditions or consequences of the abuse that lead them to isolate. And I think we also know social isolation is experienced differently by men and women. From the point of view of the bystanders, so the people that we're working with to be able to recognize warning signs and risk factors and offer support, sometimes, it is challenging to be a neighbor, friend, or family member. Sometimes it results in blaming the person out of frustration and concern for them. Sometimes there are situations that have been going on for a long time, and people, over time, it gets harder and harder to listen to the same story where the situation might not have changed that much. Sometimes bystanders do withdraw to protect their own mental health, and sometimes also to protect their own safety. And then putting this in that broader context, which is, I think, what we've been doing this afternoon, into the community and societal level. There are things that happen in our communities that actually marginalize whole groups of people. I would pose that we don't have to be that different. There doesn't have to be a big difference for people to actually experience social exclusion. So some of those things can be financial or language barriers that set people apart, or it can be immigration and settlement issues, as just a couple of many, many examples. These barriers prevent people, or can prevent people who are experiencing abusive neglect and a neglect of getting appropriate response support, because they just can't access it. And so what Charmaine is saying is we have to not only figure out how to support the older person in experiencing abuse, but also we need to address the social conditions in which it functions. So, another opportunity, 8 to 10 minutes at your table to discuss the next inspired set of ideas, and please talk about what is the link between ageism and social isolation. Go.
So I can see you're having great conversations. If you'll take just another minute and kind of wrap up, then we'll come back together. And use your Post-it notes. Capture those good ideas. Okay, if you can finish up now. All right, okay, let's come back together, and we're going to switch gears a little bit. So thank you. Like I can see, they're very spirited discussions, and that's exactly what we wanted. And, you know, your brilliant conversations are what we want to catch over there. And Ben and April, give the wave. Ben and April are lonely over there, so make sure you take your Post-it notes to them, because they love you, and they want to see you. Okay, so if we're going to talk about support, you know, we've been talking about how can I open the door for support. When we started this morning, it was that whole idea about being with people. So what is it that I have to learn in order to be with people? It is a deeply personal question. Peter Senge, who's a sort of an organizational development change guy, I like him a lot, and he said, global transformation is deeply personal because we all have a stake in things the way they are. And so we have to be willing to think about, so what is it that I need to do? What is it, that little thing that I can do that might change a situation in radical ways? And so it is a question about how can I open the door for support that I want you to think about from your own perspective. Because while we can give you a framework for a conversation, which is what I'm going to do next, how you actually do it is going to be different from person to person, right? So the tools may have sort of some common elements, but how you actually work with it is going to be entirely up to you. So we're going to do a little experiment now. Those of you who know this, I know you're going to be excited. And you can tell the people at your table that we don't do role plays, right? How many people don't like role plays? Let me see. See, I know, people hate role plays, so we never ask people to do role plays, but we're going to do an experiment, right? And it's not a role play because you don't have to be anybody other than yourself, so technically it doesn't count. So there will be an evaluation at the end of the conference, and you can complain as much as you like about not having to do a role play, okay? Fair enough. So here's what we're going to do. I actually want you to turn to somebody, to just a person next to you, and if you're sitting with someone, see, usually I make you stand up and find new people, but we don't have enough time, because I love that chaos, but we can't do it, I'm sorry. So just turn to a person next to you, and let me give you all the instructions first, okay? So all you're going to do is say those words. Your life has changed so much, are you okay? That's all you're doing. You're just saying those words to the person next to you. But I want you to do it in such a way that that door would like slam. That person would never tell you anything about anything because, you know, you're slamming the door, right? You don't actually want to know anything about them. So you're both going to get a chance to do that, okay? And I'm going to suggest that you do it twice. So, because it'll take you a minute to get into it because we don't like, you know. So do it twice. Each of you take a turn. Think about your most dismissive self, okay? Your most impatient self. And relay this line to your partner Each of you take a turn. It should take 20 seconds each, right? Like, it's not a lot of words. So don't get into, oh, it's so nice to see you. No, no, no. I just want you to say these words to each other in a way that closes the door. Go. Okay, that should be enough time. That should be enough time, right? Okay, so let's come back together now. Okay? Now, for those of you who were raised to be nice all the time, I know this is going to be hard, but you got to dig deep for it, right? So I want to see how many people in the room, your partner, what they did, closed the door for you. Absolutely. Let me just see. That's excellent. That's excellent. Now, some of you are going to have to practice. If you want to close the door, you're going to have to think more about it. Okay. Now, okay, you have to pay attention to me. I'm not done. Next, we're going to use exactly the same words to open the door. Now, this time, I'm going to suggest you stand up because you've all had cookies, and I know that it's that time of the day. So we're going to do exactly the same thing, only this time I want, no, okay, wait. Just wait. I'll tell you go. Like, just wait. Okay, Alan, whatever you want. So I do want you to open the door. So you have to think about what it is in you that would allow the door to open. This is not something I want you to rush. I want you to actually think about the person that you're going to be talking to as one of your neighbor's friends, somebody you care about, whose life is changing a lot. And I want you to deliver these words, and only these words, because it's not a role play, right? Just these words to your partner in a way that gives you a shot at the door being open. And I want you to do it twice, each of you. Because do it once, take a thought. You might even ask your partner, what do you think? Do you believe me? Would that open the door for you? And then your partner will do it. Okay? And remember, everybody should stand up because of the cookies. So stand up. And go. And then you can sit down when you're done. Yes, just sit down when you're done. That should be good. Okay. Okay. If you could take your seat again. Now, it's an interesting thing, right, with the opening the door question, is that what I could say to you is, how many of you think you opened the door? But that would be the wrong question. The right question would be for the other person. How many of you felt that the door was open for you, right? Wow, that's a lot of people. So that's excellent. And I want to say, though, that if you did not feel like you connected with the person, you know, whatever, don't worry about it. I think this stuff takes practice. It's deceptively simple. And it asks for something from you that we may not be very accustomed to, which is actually being present with the person and being genuinely concerned. You can't fake concern, right? You've got to actually feel it and communicate it in a way that people, and remember, it'll be somebody that you know. So, you know, being with is about you don't get to decide what's supportive. The other person does. So you want to pay attention to whether that door is opening or closing on you. Okay? Fair enough? Now, who would have thought you'd have so much fun at an elder abuse conference? Like, seriously. When people say, oh, I don't want to go to that, it's too serious, you say, well, right? I had this experience in Canada. Okay, so this is Francesca. This is Francesca, who's Carla's friend. Do you remember we looked at Carla and her son Michael this morning? So I'm going to show you a little video now about Francesca, you know, trying to open the door with Carla. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Watch for the impact on Carla. Oh, for Pete's sakes, okay. Manual loading.
How are things going with your son being home?
Oh, I feel badly for him. He's having such a hard time with it. He and his daughter moved upstairs on the weekend.
And where does that leave you?
In the spare room.
In the basement? Oh, I am sorry, but that is going too far. You still cater to his every whim when what he really needs is a swift kick in the pants. If you don't put your foot down, he's never going to leave that couch. Never mind look for a job.
Door open? No. No. Okay, but get your clickers. How many of you say, oh, I totally understand Francesca wanting Carla to put her foot down. I get it. Yes or no? Vote. Is it voting? Wait a minute. I've got a problem. It's not voting. Wait. Okay, wait, because I'm doing this. I'm not going to not do this. So just give me a minute here. I'm just going to reset. Somebody sing something. I'm just going to reset the slide. See how much technological prowess I have? I just want to point this out. It's still not there. What's happening? Okay, one more thing. Allison, this is eating into your time now. I love this question. I can't give up on it. I'll just do one more thing and then that's it. We'll move on. You always have to be willing to deal with challenges. Okay, there it is. Okay, I give up. Okay, I want to see a show of hands. How many people understand Francesca's? Yeah, see, I know, 100% almost. Like, people get this, right? It's like, we don't need technology, we know this. Okay, it would be 100%. But is Francesca blaming Carla for what is happening? That's the question, right? And we do this a lot. And look it, this isn't going to work either. Now I'm really upset. So, but it's a question for you, right? So, are we blaming the victim? Like, which is what we do, which is really a problem. And so, let me ask you something. Do you think this is what Francesca wants? Like, she cares about Carla, right? Do you think that what she really wants is to support Carla in a way that's meaningful? See, I think so too. I really appreciate your cheering me on here when my friggin' technology is not working. So let's give Francesca another chance, right? And watch for the impact on Carla. Okay, again, me. All right. You come to a point in the day where just, things happen.
How are things going with your son being home?
Oh, I feel badly for him. He's having such a hard time of it. He and his daughter moved upstairs on the weekend.
And where does that leave you?
In the spare room.
In the basement? I'm worried about you. Your life has changed so much. Are you okay?
Door open? The door is open, right? It looks open to me. And so now it's a question of the mechanics. So what did Francesca do? There are things that she did that opened the door. She saw the disorder, so she sees what's happening, and she asked a question. She named her concern, I'm worried about you. And did you notice that she used exactly the same words that we used a few minutes ago? And we do that because people get really hung up in finding the right words. It's not the right words. It's the person inside the words, I think, that makes the difference on whether the door opens or closes a lot of the time. So, be willing to bumble around a little bit to find them. If your concern is genuine, and remember, it's a neighbor, friend, or family member. It's somebody you care about. So it's not going to be as hard as in this room where we're not doing role plays. And the other thing she does is she listens without judgment. She makes physical contact with Carla, which may not be okay with everyone, but again, you're the best person to probably know that. And she asked a question. That's what she did. And what will happen next? We don't know, because it's not up to us. And this is where you solve it people are going to have trouble. Because you are going to want to solve this, right? As soon as the door's open, okay, let's make a plan. And you can't do that, because if you solve it, if you go in and try to solve it, remember the continuum that we had this morning? I think this will come up again in a minute, and I've got 9 seconds. I have 9 seconds. You will want to solve it, but you can't solve it because you'll be doing to and for the other person, and that's not really what you want, because I believe that what you really want is to be with someone you care about in a meaningful way. So this is stuff we have to learn. I think most of us have to learn this. Abuse levels the playing field. We are all just learning. It doesn't matter how much knowledge you have. When it's somebody you know and care about, you're going to struggle like the rest of us to know what is the right thing to do. Okay, I'm into your time.
Thank you. So there was one other thing that Francesca did, and it was related to the last thing I was speaking about up here, and that was she interrupted the isolation. So in the first example we saw, I think she kind of contributed to the isolation, right? She got upset, she blamed her, if you don't put your foot down, which we all know is really understandable. But that kind of reaction contributes, I think, to isolation. And we know that isolation, as I mentioned earlier, is both a cause and an effect of abuse. And the more abuse that happens, the more isolation that happens. And they seem to get wound up tighter and tighter and tighter together. So what we're trying to do then is reduce or eliminate isolation. And the way we do that is through this see it, name it, check it conversation. And that is what you just practiced. So I will just sort of highlight what the steps to that are, but we do it to increase safety and provide support. And as I mentioned earlier, it seems that everyone in these circumstances are isolated in their own way, including people who want to figure out how to be supportive. So what we need to do is find the opportunity to reduce the isolation and increase safety and support. And the action that we're encouraging people to do, or the intervention, and we talked this morning about the many different meanings of the word intervention, is a supportive conversation from a place of heart. The human being to human being connection, really being present with the other person. And the purpose or goal of that conversation is to open the door, to only open the door. and to leave it with the older person to decide if or what or when they might want anything else to happen. So let's talk about that conversation. It's what we call a see it, name it, check it conversation, or a sink it conversation. And it's a journey that we go on that has 3 steps. The first, to see or notice. Something makes you feel not right. So we really encourage people to pay attention to that feeling in the pit of their stomach that we all have had at different times. It's a really good thing to pay attention to. So seeing, noticing. So whatever it is that we notice in the context that makes us feel like something's not right. To name our concern, and that's what Francesca did in the second scenario, right? She said your home life, your situation at home has changed quite a bit. So she just named her concern. So rather than getting into the detail of what is your son doing or not doing with or for you, she named her concern more generally. Just named it much more generally. And then she asked her a question. Are you okay? So the conversation has these 3 steps. Noticing, that is what helps us know that we as bystanders might want to do something to be supportive. To name the concern, I'm concerned about you, from a place of heart, and then to ask something, are you okay? And that's exactly what she did. Should I show it again? I don't know if actually I can show it again, Margaret, after what I saw you do up here. So look for the see it, name it, check it.
How are things going with your son
Thank
being
you.
home?
Oh, I feel badly for him. He's having such a hard time with it. He and his daughter moved upstairs on the weekend.
And where does that leave you?
In the spare room.
In the basement? I'm worried about you. Your life has changed so much.
Naming the concern. Are you okay? The checking it. So she was able to be more with her this time, right? And that is what we're actually aiming for. And I think one of the things that, in realizing our, I think, collective, in many ways, powerful drive to solve these situations, that it can actually put the person at greater risk if they're not ready to do something about the situation just because we might think that they should. It can actually come across as disrespectful, that we actually don't believe that they can, given the right kind of support and time and belief that people can figure things out, that it actually doesn't give people that credit. And it is a form of victim blaming. We have talked about that. And it's also really understandable. So what we're trying to do is support people to have the conversation from a place of heart. See it, name it, check it, from a place of heart, to leave the door open, decrease isolation, and increase safety. And then it's up to the older person. We also talk in the sessions, the training sessions, where we're training presenters, and to be prepared for people to disclose that sometimes people do tell us what's going on. And so we do give them some language for how to handle that, both during a presentation and or afterward, and some strategies if they don't feel able to deal with a disclosure on their own, how they can work with others in their community to bring someone with them that can help be supportive. So this is what we mean by U-Power. And U-Power, I know when we have worked in the North, especially and more in collectivist cultures, people struggle with the U language. But we are talking about, we do want to continue to learn about that. And we were just talking about that beforehand. But U-Power is that each one of us, as neighbors, friends, and family members, can actually know how we typically respond in a situation. We can take a deep breath. We can figure out how to see it, name it, check it. We can talk to someone else if we're not sure the best way to approach it, because these situations are complex. So we can each do those things, and as individuals, each one of you and all of us together. You know, we are all so interconnected in our communities. We're in a position to notice and to have that supportive conversation. So each one of us can make a difference. If everything we do has an impact and it makes a difference, what kind of difference do you want to make? And I guess the last thing I'd just leave us with before I introduce Beatrice is that, you know, we don't have to have the answers to what the person's situation is. And I think that sometimes is what might make it easier to avoid the situation. But the majority of people that we're dealing with and are concerned about, given support and the freedom to make their own decisions, will be able to figure it out. Little things count. You have the power. Okay. So, I think I'm still on time. 3:55. Woo! Okay. So, it is my great privilege to introduce our last speaker of the day. And so I'm going to introduce Beatrice Berkowitz. And she's going to be speaking, well, I'll fill you in on that. Let me just introduce her. So she's a transpersonal psychologist, currently in private practice at the Wellness Center of Mount Shasta, California. She was trained in clinical school and as a clinical school and organizational psychologist, and as a teacher of psychology at the Catholic University in Brazil. For the last 30 years, she's worked as a private practitioner, teacher, school psychologist, and as a psychological consultant to medical professionals. Beatrice is passionate about the bystander approach. How could we get so lucky?
Me too.
Exactly. She will speak about the personal aspects. So she will speak about the inevitable tension that we feel as neighbors, friends, and family members, that tension between the social norm to mind our own business and to be true to ourselves. Please join me in welcoming Beatrice Berkowitz. You had to wait all day. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Canada, to open the door, because now I want to speak with you about the heart. Well, thank you, everybody. For me, it's a great opportunity, and as Alan, we are so blessed, feeling so blessed to be here. And as they said, I was training in Brazil as a transpersonal psychologist, and that really opened some door for me. And it's about this that I want to share with you today. And it makes so much sense after all you say here. I feel that what I have to say and bring here fits so well in the context. And I hope so I could, give it to you some inspiration, as I receive also so many inspirations from you and from my life with Alan, and also with my grandmother that I want to also bring here today. First, I want to tell you that idea about the philosophic path, the exploring the personal aspect in bystander and social norm is something coming to me like for a few years and has some literature written from Alan in 2009. And in 2012, we also present in Social Norms Conference. We have some material in these aspects. And also, I collaborate with him in some booklet. I have a chapter here about this theme. Anyway, if you are interested, we could share in other moment more, because today I have only 30 minutes. Okay. Well, I want to then start my presentation, present to you my grandmother. I had a good luck to live in some family where she was part of my family. She lived with us. And that was my first time when I started knowing what is philosophy. Because philosophy, it is a path with the heart. And she taught me this by example, and also speak with me with parables. You know, she taught me life with parables. She never told me, do that or do this. No, she always speak with me with the parables. And she expressed so much wisdom in her age. She was already an older woman when I born. And also, she called herself Flor. That is flower. Her original name was Ophelia because she came from a family from Spain. And she didn't like, she liked to be called Flor. And she was really as a flower because she had so much wisdom. And her action always was full of joy, services for others. She was so devotional. She prayed a lot. And with her, I knew what really is love. I never perceived religions, differences, culture. No, in my home, you know, all people, different colors was there, different cultures. And I never knew she was Catholic until one day here in the United States, I started understand religions differences because there what I learned was about love. And I want to dedicate to her and all elders my talk today because I feel in my heart I am giving back what she gave to me in that moment in my childhood. Well, now then, I am speaking about the philosophical way. First, the bystander approach and the social norm is possible to be understood about a philosophical way also, and that is what I want to bring here today. What means the philosophical way? It is the path of the heart, when you include everybody and when you include all aspects of the being, beyond the behavior, because we include some wisdom that only some inner part of us exists, because the mind helps us to organize, helps us to be practical, but the wisdom, like, is in some part beyond the mind, or what we call the superior mind, the intuitive mind, where the heart also is connected. Paradigm shifting. Now, why then I am bringing into the bystander approach and the social norm this idea? Because everything is changing in the world. For example, in the physics, you know, in the quantum physics, we see how much changes is happening in this science, correct? if you see now, for example, the scientists discover the atom isn't only the small particle, has small particles besides the atom. Also, the way the material world works, it is not only through particles movement, but also waves. And besides that, they discover how we, like the microcosmos, affect the macrocosmos, and each one affect each other. And the observer affect the experience, the object. Then it is why when we change ourselves, we help change the world. We help change others. That is the point for this presentation today in bystander approach and social norm. The transpersonal psychology brings this idea beyond the behavior, beyond mind, emotional, and physical. Has for Jung, the great psychologist, he speaks about the essence or the big self. That is what is about this approach in psychology. The imponderable soul, inner self, essence. Eliot, I think, she told today in the panel, she said, I have this person who became older and older outside me, but has one person inside me that never is older. Who is that? I could say that is the soul. That is the inner self. That is your essence. That something never will die, even when your body go away. And it is why the elder, they are so important being. And later we are seeing the misperception. Why then we we have a misperception when we think that a person who is growing, who is going to some journey, into the wisdom, why you think they became older and no more able to do things or valuable? First, then we could see what is the heart. The heart, it is where we have the values, the core, the beliefs, the ethics, the standards. Is also a physical organ because look how interesting. The first moment we came in this earth, how about was because our heart start moving, beating, correct? But when we die, why we die? We said because the heart stop. And who speaks about the heart? We never had the time, correct, to speak about the heart. And that is why the importance for us start thinking about and to be vulnerable with the heart. The presence of the soul and this essence is there in the heart, this quality inside us. And is a channel also, or heart, for a higher intelligence. The scientists also, they discover that when they make implants, surgeries, they say the person who received the heart from others start feeling and have, the same sensations as the person who gave the heart. And sometimes the family of that person recognize in the person who received the implant some familiarity. It's interesting, no? How amazing. And also, sometimes hearts speak with hearts. I think everybody here, correct, passed through some experiences that one day, when I started my relationship with Alan many years ago, I felt one day my heart was speak with his heart, but really I could perceive, the dialogue, between them. And I'm pretty sure if we open our hearts for that, we really pass through this experience. And I suggest for everybody, even that one who was abused, or who abused, please don't close your heart, because in there has the solution for everything. And now then we bring the social norm, the philosophical way. What is the norm? Alan spoke about everybody here, correct? What is the norm? The norm, the social groups, the environment where we live, the society, imposing to us some norm, correct? What is normal? Sometimes normal isn't really a normal thing, We think it's normal, but sometimes normal behavior isn't exactly the behavior that the heart wants us, And I think it depends also each culture, the normal. What sometimes is normal in one culture isn't normal in another culture. The misperception we spoke about, it is when I think that a person, which body it is more older, my perception is like that person become older and no more able to do things, and then don't have more values. But that is a misperception that could fix with the correct understanding, as was mentioned before. The inner then and the outer has to be aligned. For example, it's important for us don't be bystander of our own self. I feel that is really a challenge, and probably the more important challenge, because if you betray somebody, it's so bad. But if you betray your own self, I think that is a suicidal behavior. Then the inner is important when we align the inner, our values, our beliefs with the external. And don't let nobody pressure us in some way that we could hurt our own self before hurt others. Because that is my belief. When you hurt yourself, you hurt others. And when you hurt others, you hurt much more you. And that is why the social norms in the philosophical way means like to watch, to be in balance with both inner and out. Aligning values with the actions. Exactly that, when you align your action with your beliefs is important. The transformation process. In this way, the person passes through some process of transformation, and then this transformation, you align your values with the values also of your society, of the people, your fellows, That is what they call then the transformation process, when you question your own self, and through your understanding, you could transform yourself. For example, in the situation of the Uma Huda, the Muslim woman, in that moment when she's passing through that abuse situation, if she could think about she's missing home, correct? Why she's missing home? Because she knows something is wrong, but she don't know exactly what it's. But when we have a time to reflect, that is why it's important a time for reflection. You could understand that the person, that the son loves her, but still she has responsibilities to check herself, and in that moment she could pass through some transformation and help the son also to transform, because in some way he's blind, he can see well, the situation. Now, for example, from the point of the view, the bystander approach, we could say that the bystander approach arising from a need within a person to do the right thing. Everybody agrees, correct? We are good in a sense. That is so older information, because even Plato, ancient Greek philosopher, he spoke about that, correct? I think everybody agrees. Then, everybody has the potential to the want to do the correct thing. But what is right? Right, sometimes we see this is right, correct? And we think that is right to do. But what is the right thing? The right thing is more deeper. It is when you put your heart, that is right. But when you do the right thing in the correct moment, that is when you have inspired action, when you really transform something. Because if you don't do that, the right thing in the correct moment, probably you could lose the opportunity to save one person or one situation or your own self. Then being a bystander of your own self, for me, it is the main point in this work that I'm presenting today. Who is the elder? It is a human being as us, correct? Like growing and in evolution as you, as me, and all humanity. Who has wisdom based in life experience. And they have so much to teach us, correct? With their experience in life. And also, they are facing deeper spiritual issues, because they are preparing to die in some moment, correct? We spoke about this before. Everybody knows the only insurance we have, that is one day we die. Then, when we think in this, when we are closer to this experience, we have some kind of maturity. And this is also something important. This person in this age, they have so much to share with us or to teach about life. Who are you? You are the power, a multifaceted being. Why? Because you have a mind, a body, emotional feelings, and you have also the essence. Then you are a multifaceted being, not only the body, but many aspects. Who wants us to do the right thing? Who has a role to play in the society where you live? As Margaret say, everybody has a place, correct? And this world has a space for everybody. And important for us to figure out what is our role in each moment in our life. She and he who want us to make a difference, and we could make really a difference. She or him who want us to be her himself. I think everybody here wanted to be happy. And to be happy means to be your own self. I think it provides space, opportunity for others to be their own self. That is the more important, and really the more important thing we could to do for others, include the elders, because the elder didn't, isn't really ending, correct? Isn't ending. The elder, if you give it the opportunity for the elder, be what they are. We are speaking at the table a few minutes before, look, why Margie said, when you became elder, better, because then you don't need to be worried about what somebody thinking, which kind of the dressing you are using, You could do whatever you want, why not? You don't have any more things to, to be concerned. You could really take the opportunity to be your own self. Well, and who is the bystander? As the characteristic, I may not speak about the bystander because everybody spoke about, already, but what is the characteristics? I could say ignorance is the first one, because when you are ignorant of the truth, about your own self, about your power, who you are, then you make mistakes. And you disconnect yourself from the heart, from the wisdom, from the perception of the truth in that situation. And when you disconnect yourself, you have no action. You are paralyzed, sometimes by fear, sometimes, by don't know what to do, because you are waiting for somebody, take the action. Then you became a bystander. From bystander to the philosopher, the social being and the individual being. The social being, we see, for example, in social norm, who is the bystander or who is the person that follow the norm? That is you relate in the social level, in the horizontal, For example, I see some situation, I'm going there and say, as Alan said, could you please, do you know how many people are listening your conversation? And then the person change. That is the social level of the being. But in the individual level, the person could have awareness. Look, if I'm in the flight, in the aeroplane, and I have my cell phone so louder, I am disturbing others, Then I start learn, what to do in the correct in the correct moment. That what I call the individual aspect. Then you have horizontal line and vertical line. Practically, what we have speaking in social norm bystander approach until now, it's like the social and more about the horizontal level. And we want to bring here the vertical, position. This aspect, like not only that aspect, but how about working your own self? How about to check your values? How about to check, really what your heart say to you? And remember, the heart isn't really the emotional, because, for example, in the case of the scenario, the moving, what happened there? The mother say, poor son, my son, poor guy. He needs coming in, okay. What she has? Love, but no wisdom. The heart has love and wisdom. And to do yes, and you have to say no. That is the love, wisdom. That is the heart, not the emotional. Because the emotional make this mistake, what happened? She became miserable. He didn't do nothing. He didn't looking for jobs. He became a beggar in her own house. He destroyed his life, destroyed her life, and was destroying the life of the daughter also, because which example he's giving, correct? Well, then from the bystander to the philosopher, why philosopher? Because the philosopher is that one who knows what are doing aligned with the heart. And the squaring of the circle I'm referring, if you see that picture I gave it to you, like in the PowerPoint, is the Da Vinci painting, has a square, because squaring the circle, he said that the circle, it is the unity, is the holiness. We are one with the universe. But when we go into the material life, we became square. You know, you became a four, you became square. You have to ground in the earth. That is why the squaring of the circle is a process, you know, that we do from the spirit to the matter. And the philosopher then is whom has inspired actions. It's all us here. We are potential philosophers. Change the world by changing yourself. Dalai Lama said in some talk, peace will be possible when everybody starts having peace inside. That is when we could change really the world, change ourselves, because remember the quantum physics. When we are particles, we move, you know, in some vibration, we have the power to change everything. We change our world with any movement, any confrontation. As also in India, Gandhi did, you know, many years ago. He didn't nothing. He needs peace in India. What he did? No movement, no, only silence. People came to the Indians and they did so bad things and they didn't move at all. And one day they win, you know, through peace. Then we believe in this approach that love is higher vibration. Love, it is as the gold, is higher vibration. And to love others as we love ourselves have the power to transform the world and become the philosopher. The philosopher is that one who walks in the earth knowing that he don't belong to this world because this world is so crazy, but he is there walking with his values, her values, and through the example, as my grandmother did for me, through her example, it is what give it to my life really a strength, and I could say it is why I am here today, speak with you. That I feel is the philosopher, and that is the power of example that I think everybody here is in potential, has this power. You are power, you power. It's what they say, you know, and it is not right. Thank you so much. I think that's my presentation, and I have only here an exercise for you. We could think about, for example, sorry, I want to go back one more. Thinking in two events, when you did some action in harmony with your own self, and when you didn't action, you know, according your inner being, what happened? How affect others, and what was the difference between the two? I think we have 1 minute. 2 minutes. You could write it down if you want, because now I'm missing only a conclusion. Okay, 5 minutes. Do you want to do that, please? You know? 2 movements, what you did correct and what you didn't correct. How affect others, and what is the difference between them.
Yeah, I think it's good to give them a few minutes to do that.
Thank you, Margaret.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you.
So nice.
I want to see if I can fix this.
Everybody ready?
A minute to wrap up. We're not in that big a hurry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you want to bring them back?
Okay, everybody there? Are you ready for us make the conclusion? Thank you so much for your time doing the exercise. I want to then close with the conclusion, and my premise is that the social norm approach and the bystander approach can be applied philosophically. The human being has an inner aspect which must be considered. Social norm and the bystander approach can be used to bring about inner transformation. The social norm and bystander approach must be brought into alignment with the paradigm shift in other disciplines. And the internal and the external environments influence each other reciprocally. That it is my premise and my hope for the future, and hope I could collaborate with you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, I just wanted to acknowledge Beatrice again. I found that a very moving human being, philosophical. I mean, that just brings all the pieces together that we've been talking about today. So we've been on a path today, right? We've heard more about and seen a lot of the products and heard the beginnings of some of the learnings from all of us on the It's Not Right Neighbors, Friends, and Families for Older Adults initiative. We heard from Alan about some very thought-provoking things that I'm gonna have to watch the videotape because there was so much there that I want to be able to really focus on. We had an opportunity to have some inspired conversations. Please don't forget that those guys over there do still want to talk with you and get your Post-it notes. We had an opportunity to hear from these three lovely women about ageism from a very personal, grounding, celebrating being who we are perspective, which I am just so grateful for. We had an opportunity to hear from our esteemed panel about intersections, the intersections of with abuse, of rural and remote communities, with culture, with mental health, addiction, poverty. And we had an opportunity to see a few more of the scenarios and actually practice having a see it, name it, check it, supportive conversation from heart. And I think we're ending on heart. So I just wanted to say that that's where we've been today. Tomorrow we're going to continue to unpack more about some of the other things that we've been learning, both at the local level and what it actually means for us going forward on future phases of this project. So before we have our one last clicker question that Margaret has worked her magic, as only Margaret can do.
Turned it on, turned it off.
I was really happy to find out there's a reset button. I learned that in the Yukon in front of about 35 people. But are there any things that you want to say before we kind of shift into our evening together?
Well, I also just wanted to thank everybody. It's been a great day for us. We were totally freaked out, as only conference people planning can be. And, it's like, but I don't get so freaked out, because I know when we gather people together, amazing things happen. It's just, you just have to create the space for it, right? And all things become possible. So I really wanted to thank each and every one of you for your contributions today, because even if you have been here quietly, it is a meaningful contribution for us. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. So just a few logistics. So this is the room we're going to be in later. So there's a cash bar at 6, and there's a plated dinner at 6:30. So please, come back, because I feel like I can actually pay attention and have a conversation now, because I did what I was supposed to do today, basically.
And Heather wanted me to tell you that the dinner is amazing, like amazing. So you'll want to come back and have the dinner with us. I can't remember what it is. But so it's a dinner surprise. It's a dinner surprise, and isn't that the best kind?
And I guess the other couple things I wanted to just note is that we are meeting in this room again tomorrow, beginning at 8:30 sharp. And is there breakfast?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I think
Thank
that
you, people who read your emails.
I think that might have been confusing for people this morning. So breakfast will be here tomorrow morning. So just so you know that. Okay. So last clicker opportunity. Leaving today.
And you can vote as many times as you want. So this is one of those questions where you can answer it in as many ways as you want. You're totally free.
Yeah, so you pick all the options that apply
Pick
to
whatever
you.
options apply
Okay,
to you.
so A is I feel inspired, B I have new ideas, C I have met new people, and D there was nothing really new for me. Go. What number are we on?
78. So just give it another minute.
Where's the,
Oh, I'll just advance it here.
And the answer is our collective answer, our community answer.
Wow.
Wow, look at that.
Okay, those of you, the 3%, talk to us after. We
Yeah.
want to hear from you.
Absolutely. All right. Have a good evening, everyone. We're looking forward to seeing you tonight.